What's up, guys, and welcome to Saulcast. Tonight, we're talking about Season 5, Episode 7 of Better Call Saul, titled JMM. This is our instant take. We just watched the episode, so these will be our raw, immediate reactions to having seen it, but make sure to check back later in the week where we'll have our full scene-by-scene breakdown and analysis. This video will, of course, be full of spoilers, so if you haven't seen the episode yet, check it out. And then listen to this podcast or watch this video. I'm Gil, here with my brother Adam.
Hello.
And my tech guy / brother Alon.
Yo.
With that, let's jump into it. Adam, I think the thing we really want to talk about is the Jimmy and Howard confrontation, the thing I've been waiting for. Let's save that for the end.
Okay.
And let's...
Yeah. Are you the kind of person who you save the best bite for last when you're having a meal?
When I eat a Reese's cup, I eat the crust and then save the gooey center for the end.
I've never thought of them as having crust.
And they're not gooey on the inside.
Yeah, they
It's
are.
just kind of peanut butter.
It's not gooey.
Let's start with Jimmy and Kim getting married. We were debating over why did Kim want this marriage. And I got to pat myself and Dalmatian Parade on the back because we were both right, which is that this marriage is for legal purposes. They get spousal privilege, which means whatever they talk about, they can't be forced to testify against each other. Now, my question here is, how do Jimmy and Kim both feel about this? Jimmy expresses some concern for Kim. Are you sure you're okay with this? I've got to imagine this isn't what you were imagining as a 12-year-old. So what do you think Kim's feelings are underneath the surface here? And then let's talk about Jimmy.
I think she's kind of into it. She clearly still can't resist scheming and participating in what everything that Saul is up to. And now she gets to do it while feeling like maybe she's putting herself at less risk. So, and she also actually did seem more tantalized than I would have expected by all the money.
Do you think any part of her does feel like she's missing out on potentially her and Jimmy having a real wedding, or the marriage meaning something more than just a legal...
I think she can't distinguish between the two anymore. So I almost feel like she probably hasn't thought about how she might be giving up having some kind of fairy tale marriage in life.
Do you think that she might actually, in a way, maybe she enjoys the marriage this way more than a traditional one, because now it fits into the thing that she always finds so tantalizing with Jimmy, which is the...
It's probably not a good idea, but I think it aligns with what we've seen so far. And I also think she's already seeing some of the benefits, because it actually... Saul told her what he was up to, and he definitely wouldn't have if not for their agreement. And it seems like she liked hearing about it and did not react poorly.
Yeah, and I would say this episode throughout, we've seen the two of them happier together than we've seen them in a long time. And I don't remember the last time we had a scene where they were physical with each other and tender with each other the way they were in this episode when Jimmy came clean to her about Lalo.
That was definitely the most explicit that the show has become. And it's pretty rare for it to get into romantic territory at all, which we've talked about before.
Yeah.
And also, I remember last episode I said, wow, we might actually see a wedding at some point in this series. Let alone that I wasn't expecting to see it this episode. So.
Right. And how happy were you that Huel was a core part of that wedding?
And he wanted to be the ring bearer.
And by the way, Jimmy has asked for the form about his two previous dissolutions, his two previous divorces, which in an old interview with Vince Gilligan, he talked about how throughout Breaking Bad, Saul Goodman would make these casual references that now they have to deal with. At one point, he says to Walter White, I caught my second wife cheating on me with my cancer. He had two marriages before
Which
Kim.
Leaves open still the possibility that he and Kim are together through all of Breaking Bad.
Right. It's possible.
Yeah.
How do you think Jimmy feels about this, though? If any, in the scene between the two of them, I actually love the cinematography here, where they kept cutting back and forth. Kim's face, Jimmy's face. They really wanted us to see what the actors were portraying there. And I tried to pay attention to it. To me, I kept waiting to see Kim look pained or worried in some way. I didn't pick up on that at all. Like we were saying, I think she actually seemed okay with it and happy with it.
It was her idea.
Jimmy was the one who I thought seemed more worried. And I think my first impression is that he's worried on her behalf.
Mhm.
And I don't know if any part of that's about him or if he's kind of disillusioned with the idea of marriage after his previous 2 divorces.
I don't know. Those seem to have not had a lasting impact on him, but
Nothing really seems to have a lasting impact on him, to be fair.
yeah, that's true. I think that now I can't get in his head because he's a very unique person, but
Slippery, one might
he's
say.
a little slippery. If I were in his shoes, his slippery sandals, I would probably feel a combination of worried for Kim that I'm gonna make her life worse somehow, while also being concerned that I can't hold up my end of the bargain, that there will be something I don't want to tell her and I'm not gonna tell her.
Right. I would also maybe partially be worried that I think Jimmy's had some fear that he's going to lose Kim, especially last episode he was afraid of that. And if you think about how a relationship progresses, one of the natural next steps would be marriage. And now they're kind of using up that relationship progression card on this legal device.
They could always get a dog,
That's true.
have some kids.
Yeah, they've already got a fish,
Yeah.
so they can upgrade it to
Iguana.
dog. I hope Jimmy doesn't have kids.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about Lalo. We finally got to see Jimmy defend Lalo. And I guess the main question I had is, we know why Lalo wants to get out on bail, right? He wants to get out.
Mm-hmm.
Why does Mike want to get him out on bail?
Well, okay. It's like getting him in jail didn't do anything, right?
They thought it would take him out of commission, and it clearly didn't.
Can't they just get his cell phone taken away? Like, who slipped him the phone?
Well, I'm assuming that the cartel has a lot of connections with the cops there, and so they have some power there. The cops can't just walk in and take Lalo out and set him free, but they can slip him a cell phone.
I think that Mike is very skillful in the way that he executes a plan, but him choosing the right plan is not necessarily his forte. Right.
So maybe Mike set the plan, I'm going to get Lalo arrested, executed it flawlessly, but maybe it wasn't the right move because, like we said, he's in prison, Lalo, he's in holding, but it's not helping them in any way. And in fact, it's actually making things more difficult for them because they can't kill him and he's still a threat. If they kill him, the cartel will know that it was Gus and it starts rising in the ranks. So with Lalo out of prison, Nacho still close to Lalo, Gus now has control. So it's basically, we moved our chess piece here. You know what? Never mind. Let's move it back.
Yeah, he didn't quite take his finger off of it, right? He was able to just undo it for a small $7 million.
Right, exactly. And just 2 questions I have, though, are number one, was it really a mistake on Mike's part? I find it hard to believe that he would be able to execute that plan, which is such a big move against Lalo without Gus knowing about it and clearing it.
I think he would have needed approval, which makes me think maybe Gus underestimated how well connected Lalo is or how protected he is even from jail.
Maybe either he underestimated it or this is part of the plan, because just because Lalo gets out of jail, he's out on bail. It doesn't mean he's a free man. So I'm assuming the cops are still looking for him. It does put him in a tougher spot. But on the other hand,
he's cranking the pressure on him a little.
Right, he's cranking the pressure, and it's not turned up all the way because it's very heavily implied. I mean, it's outright basically stated that the name he goes under in the court system, it's not his real name. Jimmy says if they find out you're not who you say you are, Lalo reassures him that's not going to be a problem.
Now, here's some loose thoughts about his fake name, by the way.
Right.
All right. Jorge de Guzman. Gus, right? And you have Saul Goodman, right? I don't know. There's some kind of thing going on there. Lalo, everyone is all intertwined and connected.
Right, Lalo the Gus man.
Yeah. It's all Gus, man.
Now we're covering Westworld on our YouTube channel, and one thing they do a lot in that show is they will use anagrams, where people's names, if you mix them up, they'll spell something that gives some clue about or some meaning. So could be doing that here.
Yeah. I think what it tells us is that is that Gus and Lalo are going to have issues.
Right, because that hasn't. We didn't know that already. This is Adam has pieced it together for you.
I figured it out.
So then another why question here. Why did Gus and Nacho burn down Pollos Hermanos?
I think Gus wants to get out of the chicken business once and for all. No, well, okay. It was Lalo's orders, right?
Right.
So it makes sense because Gus realizes that Nacho needs to do a good job following Lalo's commands so that Nacho can get closer to Nacho can get closer to Lalo so that Gus can get closer to Lalo through Nacho.
Right.
Why was Gus there helping? I think in part it's because it's his restaurant. I think he genuinely cares about this side of his life. And it's something, and he also wants to make sure it's done right.
Right, because I'm assuming that the way the restaurant is burned down matters.
Yeah.
Either for insurance purposes or for when the cops show up to investigate, they can protect Nacho so he can remain an asset for Gus. So yeah, I think he's there. I think all the reasons you said. He wants to make sure it's done right, and he does genuinely care about his business. Also, how great was it, Gus's plan to have the frozen chicken there?
It's like a Rube Goldberg machine.
Right. It was really just a couple steps, though. Chicken into the fryer. What caused the actual explosion?
So
he had the oven turned up, too.
Yeah, so he had the gas going. So he created a gas leak. And also, every year around Thanksgiving, I hear these warnings directed toward people who plan to fry their turkey, which is don't fry a frozen turkey. And I think it's because it blows up.
Well, Adam, you just saved lives.
Yeah.
So you're welcome, listeners and viewers.
Fry a frozen chicken instead.
Because that worked so well for Gus.
Oh, wait. All right.
Well, actually, it did work well for Gus. Yeah. But it just, as long as your goal is to explode something.
Yeah.
And is that the first time or one of the few times we have a guy badass walking away with an explosion behind him without him turning back?
Didn't Walt not turn and look when he blew up that Mustang?
You're right.
Or I forget which car
and
it was.
he threw that "this isn't meth" on the ground and walked away.
Yeah, well, it kind of blew everyone up, right?
That's true.
I don't know if you could be looking away from it. It blew up so fast. But if he could have not looked at it, he would have.
There you go. And I think the twins did it too at one point.
Yeah.
So, but this is a prequel, so Gus did it first. Also, remember the crazy music that was happening over the scene of them burning the place down?
Yeah, it was like spiritual.
Yeah, it was great. And before we talk about Jimmy and Howard, if you're watching this on YouTube, just a quick reminder to hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell icon so you get notified the next time we go live. You can be a part of the conversation. And if you're listening to this as a podcast, see that link in the show notes so you too can participate. See this on the YouTube channel, see our faces, and you can talk to us.
Find out what we look like. See if we look as good as we sound.
And then tell us. Let's talk about Jimmy and Howard. So I've been waiting for this for episodes. You
have been anticipating this.
Yes. Last episode was called Wexler v. Goodman. I've been waiting for Howard v. Jimmy. And we finally got it. And last episode, my theory was that why is Jimmy so mad at Howard? My thought was that Jimmy is harboring guilt over his brother's death. He hasn't moved past it. But he sees that Howard has moved past it, and that angers Jimmy. He sort of is taking it out on Howard and trying to take the pain out of himself and put it on Howard. And I think I was wrong.
I was not expecting that. Okay, elaborate.
Well, I think that Howard agrees with me. Howard says to Jimmy, I'm sorry you're in pain. And Jimmy very heavily disagrees with him. That sets him off. And what I forgot about Jimmy, call me Benioff and Weiss, because I sort of forgot.
He likes to subvert expectations. Is that
no, that Jimmy has this complex about feeling like a small person.
Yes.
And Howard always made him feel that way. And in fact, I think early in the season, that was my original theory, is that when Howard made the job offer, that made Jimmy feel small again.
Yeah.
Because it's Howard saying, I'm from this big law firm. Jimmy, why don't you come work for us? As if it should be this thing that Jimmy is so happy about.
It's like the Schwartz's offering Walt to pay for his cancer treatment.
Yes, exactly like that. And I think that I was once again basically tricked, because I keep thinking Jimmy must feel something for his brother. He must feel guilty. And every time I think, yes, he does, I'm seeing it, I find out I'm wrong. Last season, it was the courtroom breakdown. I was wrong. This season, he's taking it out on Howard. And again, I think I was wrong.
I think he feels so little guilt or anything else about it that he didn't hesitate to actually tell Howard he killed him.
Right, even though he knows that's not true.
Yeah.
And so when he says to Howard, "You kill my brother and then you come back to me like this," I think he's just saying that to it's I threw bowling balls at your car. I sent ladies of the night to your important business meeting, and now it's I am going to stick a fork in your wound.
Right, which is really cruel, because this is clearly something Howard is struggling with, unlike Jimmy.
Or at least he was struggling with it. I do believe that Howard has found peace with it.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's never going to be fully at peace, and it's a bummer, I'm sure, that Jimmy brought it up. But I think Jimmy purely did it as a way to get through to Howard and just be mean to him again.
Yeah.
But I have to wonder if this is the end of Jimmy and Howard, because what I thought was going to be the conclusion of that storyline was exactly this. Some kind of a shouting match between them, some sort of catharsis for Jimmy to just explode and let out some emotion. I wonder if there's any more to be said on this, or if that's it. Now Jimmy walks away. I don't think Howard has any reason to come back to him at this point.
I don't know if we see them together again, it's not gonna be by choice on either of their parts. I think the law might bring them together. Either their paths will cross for some legal reasons, or actually that's about it. Yeah, I think that would be how they reconnect, if it happens at all. I don't think we've seen the last of Howard, that's for sure.
I don't think we've seen the last of Howard, and in fact, I don't think Howard will come back to Jimmy, but I do think it's possible Jimmy goes back to Howard.
Oh, that would be very humbling.
He might, not humbling in the, what I'm saying actually is I think Jimmy wants to keep going after Howard.
Okay.
He might try to crush him like a bug. That was his whole rant at the end there, is I'm a god, I shoot lightning bolts out of my fingers. And Jimmy is on the brink of being as powerful as he pretended to be. If he gets well connected with the cartel, which seems like there's a good chance that's going to happen, he is going to have money, he is going to have power, and if he wants to, he can do worse to Howard than what he's done to him already.
Oh, and, yeah, the prostitutes and the bowling balls is nothing.
Right. So I could see it going that way, and that'll be very hard to watch if it goes in that direction. But I have a hard time thinking about how else it could go, because what else would be interesting, unless Jimmy somehow forgives Howard and they make up. But I just don't see that happening.
I don't see that either. But this is the first time we see Saul reflecting. He really does feel, is that he's involved in some important stuff right here, things that of significance, and this like dark underbelly of power.
Now, one thing I don't want to gloss over though is that right before Jimmy bumps into Howard, he is put into a pretty emotionally vulnerable state.
Mm-hmm.
He's defending Lalo. He turns back and he sees, I think his name was Fred, the guy who was murdered. He sees his family, and Jimmy is very affected by that, which was really interesting to see, because Jimmy is so closed off with his emotions, and it's so rare that we need to see him wrestle with the morality of what he's doing. And the closest we get to it is an expression on his face. The score leaving the scene for a minute, we get into the slow motion. He's very distracted. We get that great shot of him peeking around the corner where you see half his face reflected on the wall where he's looking at the family. And so he was in a very vulnerable emotional state. So I do wonder if that's part of what caused him to explode on Howard. And I don't know if there's a direct line there where it changed his state of mind and it made him yell at Howard, or if it's just as simple as, I'm agitated, I'm vulnerable because of what I just went through, so the stuff he said to Howard, that's a message he would have delivered either way, but now he's just doing it more emotionally and more angrily because of what he just had to go through.
He was already in a volatile state.
Yeah, exactly. And that volatile state, Jimmy being forced to look at the real consequences of not what he's doing, but what he's supporting. I want to see more of that. That was pretty incredible to see.
Yeah.
And just great acting, as always, from Bob Odenkirk here.
Yeah, that was awesome. And it was hilarious, too, just to watch.
Yeah.
One thing I wonder is, how is Kim going to react when Saul actually gets Lalo out? Because the plan was for Saul to try his best, but except that there's no actual way they're going to let him out.
Right. When Kim asked, do you want to be a friend of the cartel? Yeah. I can't get a read on her, and I'm almost ready to give up trying, because in that scene, I wasn't sure if she was going to be mad at Jimmy, or my expectation was that she was going to actually come up with a plan to get Lalo out. And so I really don't know how she's going to react. This is kind of the Walter White coming clean to Skyler moment. Now, we were never going to have a moment like that in this show because Kim is pretty aware of most of what Jimmy does. She doesn't know the details, but she knows he's involved with the criminal underbelly. Mm-hmm. So the closest we get to that confession is, here are some of the details of what I'm doing. And Kim learning, really, it's not just petty criminals we're talking about here. It's the cartel. We're dealing with $7 million issues here.
Right, and $7 million where you say, oh, okay, we can do that.
Exactly. Yeah. And even Jimmy doesn't quite understand what he's dealing with, because he is consistently, one theme of this season is Jimmy being surprised by how big these numbers can get, and people are okay with it.
Yeah, I think he doesn't realize how valuable his skill set is.
Yeah.
But he's learning. In fact, that's, in many ways, that's what his whole speech to Howard was about.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't even know what I'm capable of.
Right. And so, actually, that's a good point. He was talking to Howard, and in a way, he was also talking to himself. He's realizing the power that's being placed in his hands. And I think the answer to Kim's question, do you want to be friends with the cartel? Jimmy says no. You can never take him at face value. But if he was on the fence, I think this scene moved that to a definite yes.
Yeah.
Because when he talks about having that power, I think Howard reminds him he wants that power.
I do too.
That's what this whole podcast is about. We're trying to get the power. Any other thoughts on episode 6?
Awesome. Yeah.
The one thing I want to see more of is, I feel like Lalo has been a little subdued the last few episodes because he's been forced to. Mm-hmm. He's in a vulnerable position. He's in holding with the cops. I miss unhinged, just awesome Lalo. So I hope we get a taste of that once he's out of prison, and then it's some kind of all-out war with Gus.
We didn't even get to see him actually ask them to burn the restaurant down. It was just told to us secondhand. But I think once he's out of jail, he's going to do something crazy.
I think so. And actually, he's so calm that it still fits his character. He's absurdly calm in this situation, which is just hilarious to watch. And the thing Better Call Saul does so well is it can be hilarious and tragic simultaneously. When Lalo's in court and he needs to be reminded, Jimmy says, it's Fred, the guy that was murdered at the travel wire.
The guy that died.
Oh.
Yeah.
So hilarious that Lalo doesn't even remember who the guy is that he killed, but also horribly tragic. And the show doesn't shy away from that at all. It's incredible. So clearly we're both big fans of this episode. Can't wait to see. It's only going to ramp up from here, so can't wait to see what happens in the remaining 3 episodes of the season. And with that, I think we can say thanks for listening. And if you're listening to this as a podcast, another reminder, hit that link in the show notes. Check out our YouTube channel, OneTake, where now both the instant takes and the full recaps are being posted as videos. So you're going to want to check those out. And with that, I'm Gil.
I'm Adam.
I'm Alon.
And this is Saulcast Instant Take.